Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and another vintage camera video. Up until now I have been talking about three main types of camera. SLR, single lens reflex. This is where you look through a viewfinder, but by way of a mirror you're actually seeing what the lens is seeing. You're looking through the lens. So your composition of the photograph, the focusing that you do and everything else is all done through the actual lens that's taking the picture. So effectively you're seeing exactly what's going to get transferred onto the film. We've then done a TLR, a twin lens reflex camera. Very similar, but now we are looking through one lens and doing the composition and the focusing through that. And there's a second lens then that actually takes the picture. And then finally, back in my earlier videos, we looked at a camera whereby it's simply a viewfinder. The thing you're looking through is a completely separate device to the lens that's actually taking the picture. So this time we're going to look at a fourth type, what's known as a rangefinder camera. So let's waste no time, let's take a look. So this is the rangefinder I'm going to talk about. This is the Zorki 4, a Soviet era Russian made camera. Made from 1956 until 1973. This particular one here is one of the last ones made, so it's actually dated 1973. If you own one of these, I'll show you in a moment how you can tell what year yours was made. Originally, they had the Russian acrylic lettering of Zorki 4 written across here. So if it's not in English, you've got one of the earlier domestic versions. This one obviously being later. This was an export model made for being exported outside of Russia, hence the English writing. You can also look on the back here at the serial number. The first two digits represent the year of manufacturer, so as you can see mine is 1973. The film format is 35mm, and the way you would load the film, on the bottom here we've two clips that if you lift them up and then twist, and then the whole back of the camera comes apart. Whoops. So we have a little take-up spool here, which does come off, as you can see. So the shutter, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, is actually cloth, almost like curtains. And in fact, when I show it you in action in a moment, curtain is quite a good description. But yeah, take-up spool over here with the sprockets for the film. So you would load your cartridge into here, take the tongue across, this would normally be on here, feed it into the slot on the take-up spool, and then this knob on top then would wind it on until you're ready. So quite similar to the SLRs that I've been showing you so far. So if I just put that back together, oops, I shall show you the controls. Mounting point for a tripod, as is pretty common on just about every camera. So controls, I'll come to the lens in a moment. We have our shutter release on top. We have our speed of shutter setting. Again, I'm going to come back to that because it's a little different. We have the take-up knob that I was mentioning, and it automatically counts the exposures as well, although you do have to manually set it to 0 when you first load the film in. The lens then, with this particular model, it's a Jupiter 8, it's an f2 lens. They did come with, I think, at least one other type of lens, but they are, just like many other cameras, interchangeable, so a screw-mounted fitting that you can place another, replace it with another lens. One thing I would say about this, so on an SLR we would have a mirror here. So without that mirror there, the focal plane of this lens is able to be much closer to where the film is. And one of the reasons that people like rangefinders quite a lot, and I will explain more about what rangefinder exactly what it means, but this lens being the focal plane of the lens being close to the film often results in sharper images, and I think that's why these sort of cameras do attract people. They are also much lighter, less bulky, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'll go into the details a bit more in a moment, but we'll come back to that. We have our aperture ring here, so as you could see, f2 being the widest aperture, down to f22. You can actually see it opening and closing there as I turn it. And we also have our focusing. Now this is the point that we need to discuss. Just like many other lenses, it does tell me here, if we line it up with a red line, we've got 1 meter, 1.2 meters, 1.5 up to infinity, and you can, judge the distance to your subject and guess that way. But what makes this a rangefinder camera as opposed to either an SLR or a viewfinder is that the way the focusing is actually achieved. So if this were a viewfinder camera, I'd be looking through here and this window would be showing me what I'm going to be taking a picture of, whereas obviously it's the lens that actually takes the picture. This though, however, has another little window here, which when you look through, you get a kind of picture-in-picture effect. Now I was hoping to show you this effect. Unfortunately, I've tried filming through the viewfinder and it's just not clear enough. So I'm going to hopefully be able to demonstrate it with a bit of a visual effect. So I'm pointing my video camera at the Zorki, and what you're seeing now is more or less what you would see if you were looking through the viewfinder. You've got the larger image showing the subject matter that you're taking a photograph of, and then in the center is a smaller image which is coming from that small window that I pointed to, and you can see both images. However, currently you'll know the image is out of focus because the smaller image doesn't match up quite to the larger image. However, as I turn the focus ring, the images should eventually come together, and that's when you know it's in focus. And that mechanism is what makes this a rangefinder camera. Okay, so I've taken the back off the camera again just to show you its operation. So if you imagine the film was loaded, to cock the shutter, there's no battery involved here. This camera is entirely clockwork, for want of a better term. But to cock the shutter, what we would do is we would advance the frame on. So I would turn this knob here, and you can see it obviously turning the take-up spool, but also you can see the shutter effectively moving across. The shutter's in two parts, and now that the shutter is cocked, we can take a picture. So if I can press the shutter release on top, you may have caught, but the curtains moved across very quickly, leaving a gap. Now, one of the peculiarities of this camera, I don't know whether it's the same for all rangefinders, I'm guessing not, but certainly perhaps some of the other Soviet-made ones. You're not to set the shutter speed until the shutter is cocked. If you do, let me show you what I mean. So first of all, the shutter speed at the moment is pointing to half a second, but it actually isn't half a second. Once I cock the shutter, you'll see it moving around. It's actually pointing to a 60th of a second. If I want to change that, now is the time to do it. Now the shutter is cocked. If I try changing it before the shutter is cocked, you can damage the inside. There's a little pin that can actually snap. So what we do is we lift this knob turn it around to the setting we want, so that's now pointing at a 500th of a second, and now I can take the picture. All right, much quicker. Let me slow it right down so you can actually see the shutter. So let me cock it again. Lift this all the way up. I've turned it now all the way to bulb. Hopefully you can see that pointing at B. And so I hold the shutter down. It opens up, and you probably saw it slide across. And when I release, it closes again. So yeah, an unusual design, but actually works very well. When I received this camera, first of all, when I first purchased it, the shutter was a little sticky. Well, actually it was very sticky, and it would crawl across, not at the correct speed at all. But I have managed to do a little work on it and free it up somewhat. I think I could probably do with repeating the process, and what I might do is actually film that for a future video. Again, with the back off, just to show you what's going on. Once you've reached the end of your film, in order to release it from the sprocket so that you can then wind back into the canister, there's a dial sort of surrounding the shutter button, which if I turn that, what happens is this section has now been disengaged, so this now spins freely, so you can use this knob to then roll it all the way back. Last few controls then, we have a self timer here, which I've demonstrated on other cameras. You pull this down, press the button, and you get about 12 seconds, I think it is. And then just one last, which is, I think is rather nice. There's a little lever here on top. It's going to be difficult for me to demonstrate, but what that does is it actually adjusts the focus of the viewfinder a little bit. So for those of us with poor eyesight, and I include myself in that, a bit like on some binoculars, you can adjust this, and I don't know whether the camera's going to pick it up, but inside it's moving the glass backwards and forwards, so you get a nice sharp image even if you, like me, require glasses. Point for the flash, and there's a dial outside the shutter speed, one to set the synchronization on the flash as well. So there we have it, that's the Zorki 4. There was a slightly later one that replaced this knob with a sort of crank handle that you get on a lot more modern cameras, and that was the Zorki 4K. But I love this. I haven't had a chance to actually take it out with some film yet. I'm looking forward to doing that. If you check out my website, I'll hopefully post the results up as soon as they're ready. So that's it for another video, and that's the Zorki 4. Thank you once again for watching. I cannot thank you enough. I really do appreciate every view, and for those of you that are subscribed, that's brilliant. I'm up to a massive 33 subscribers now, which I know makes me a very, very tiny channel, but it makes me very, very happy. So yeah, please continue supporting me. I really do appreciate it. Got loads more videos planned, loads more cameras to look at. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.